मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरून् दीनतारिणम्। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। आराध्यो भगवान् व्रजेशतनयस् तद्धाम वृन्दावनम्। रम्या काचिदुपासना व्रजवधू वर्गेण या कल्पिता। श्रीमद्भागवतं प्रमाणममलं प्रेमापुमर्थो महान्। श्रीचैतन्यमहाप्रभोर्मतमिदं तत्र तरः न परः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. It's a great pleasure to be back again in Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir. Every time we return, there's always some wonderful new things to see and some wonderful old things to see, which are also very, very new every time you see them. The deities looking ever fresh and ever dazzling. Nowhere in the world can you see any deities like this. That's for sure. The Kirtan, the devotee association, and all the nice developments going on in the temple under the leadership of His Grace Panchagauda Prabhu. The association here, the effect of the Dham is just unparalleled. Today is the anniversary of the disappearance of three of our great acharyas, Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, Srila Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, and Srila Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami. Anyone who is asked to speak about these three acharyas in 40 minutes' time is really in for a tough job, I will, however, try to speak something about these three acharyas, but especially more about Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, and then briefly about the other two acharyas. It is always very inspirational, instructive, enlivening, and faith-enhancing for us to learn and talk about these great acharyas. This is our spiritual heritage. Our heritage is not only in terms of physical places, temples. It's not merely about the pastimes, or rather the word merely is not probably appropriate, but it's not only about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan 5,000 years ago, but also equally about the pastimes and great qualities of his great devotees, like these acharyas. So it is very, very important for us to repeatedly remind ourselves about the glories of these great devotees. Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami is, of course, famous amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas as the Prayojana Acharya. As we all know, the Vedic teachings can be understood in terms of Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. Sambandha is that knowledge which establishes our relationship with Krishna. Sambandha means relationship. Madan Mohan is the predominating deity for Sambandha, and the Acharya is Sanatan Goswami. Abhidheya refers to the process of Krishna consciousness. One acts according to Sambandha Gyan. One acts according to one's constitutional relationship with Krishna, which is as a servant eternally. The deity is Radha Govindadev, and the Acharya is Srila Rupa Goswami. And Prayojana refers to the ultimate goal of life, the ultimate goal of Abhidheya, which is pure love of Godhead, Krishna Prem. The deity is Radha Gopinath, and the Acharya for Prayojan is Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. So we can understand how great an Acharya he is and how important he is for us in our Krishna consciousness. Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami was actually the first of the 6 Goswamis to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu physically. Of course, Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis met him in Ramakeli when Mahaprabhu went up for his northward trip. But Raghunatha Dasa Goswami was a very young boy, only 15 years old perhaps, when he first met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A little bit briefly though about the time before that. Raghunath's father was Govardhan Mazumdar and his uncle was Hiranya Mazumdar. They were incredibly wealthy merchants. The Nawab of that time who ruled Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah, had leased the entire district of Saptagram to Govardhan and Hiranya Mazumdar on a yearly rent of 12 lakh rupees. 1 lakh is 100,000. Of 12 lakh rupees of those days. That's of course hundreds of times more in terms of the value today. And they would collect taxes amounting to roughly about 20 lakh rupees annually. So they would have a profit of 800,000 rupees or 8 lakh rupees annually. Multiply that by many hundreds of times and you get the value of what they would have earned today. So they were really millionaires even in those days. They were devotees, but of course Mahaprabhu also indicated they had some materialistic inclinations also. So they were not pure devotees, but they were Vaishnavas, and they liked to have Vaishnavas coming in their midst and speaking Krishna Katha and chanting the holy name. And they also hosted Srila Haridas Thakur one time, and many wonderful pastimes happened there, which time does not permit us to talk about today. In his childhood, Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami was instructed by a great devotee of Krishna whose name was Balaram Acharya. And it was Balaram Acharya later who actually introduced him first to Srila Haridas Thakur, who happened to come to Saptagram. The family guru of Govardhan Mazumdar was Yadunandan Acharya, and he also happened to be the Diksha Guru of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. Now this may be a little surprising because we generally associate Raghunatha Dasa Goswami so closely with Mahaprabhu directly, and also with Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami in Puri, and later on with Srila Rupa Goswami, and also with Sanatana Goswami in Braj. But it is the conclusion of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas that Raghunatha Dasa Goswami actually took Diksha from Yadunandan Acharya. So even from childhood, Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami exhibited a very strong trait of renunciation and attachment to Krishna and to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in particular. When he was about 15 years of age, and he was born in 1495, so which means sometime around 1510 or so, he had heard about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas and his visit to Shantipur soon after sannyas. And he rushed there, he rushed to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was overwhelmed beyond description with that darshan of Mahaprabhu and his association. He resolved within himself that he would never leave Mahaprabhu's association. He had actually run away from home to get Mahaprabhu's association, even at that young age. And Mahaprabhu understood Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's heart, but nevertheless, he gave him good instruction to return home. He said, "Don't be like a madman. You should go back home and keep your devotion for Krishna within your heart. Don't display it, don't express it. And a time will come when you will be able to leave or renounce the world and come to my shelter." So most reluctantly but obediently, Raghunatha Dasa Goswami left Mahaprabhu's association and returned to his home in Saptagram. And soon after that, being alarmed at the very strong tendencies that were exhibited by his son in the field of renunciation, Govardhan Mazumdar had him married to a very, very beautiful young lady, hoping that the beauty of this young girl would keep him bound to home and hearth. But that was not to be. Every now and then he tried to escape and was forcibly brought back by the servants of Govardhan Mazumdar. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's mother was extremely alarmed and frustrated, and she was thinking of binding physically Raghunatha Dasa Goswami so he wouldn't run away from home. But her husband was sensible. He said, "Look, if the beauty of this young wife doesn't bind him here, do you think your ropes are going to bind him?" And eventually one day, when his guru, Yadunandan Acharya, was there and he wanted to go out for some errand, he took advantage of that occasion, went out with him, and then ran away. And he went to get the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Before that, of course, there was the episode, the famous celebrated episode of the Panihati Chira Dahi Utsav. Even as a very wealthy young man, as a Grihastha, he tried to get the association of devotees as much as possible. And one time, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Shyama Sundar ki jai. And then he got the association of devotees, and Lord Nityananda Prabhu bestowed very special mercy on Raghunatha Das Goswami, and in a sense prophesied the impending shelter that he would receive at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in any case, soon thereafter, by Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, he managed to successfully this time escape from home, and he reached Jagannath Puri, where Mahaprabhu was residing at that time. Raghunatha Das Goswami had walked a long distance without food because he had taken the path or the direction that was not generally taken, fearing that his father's servants would be chasing him. So he went by a very long circuitous route and eventually reached Jagannath Puri. Mahaprabhu understood his predicament, and he instructed his followers to feed him properly for a few days. He said he has come from a long distance walking, he has fasted, so please feed him well for a few days, but after that, let him be on his own. So Mahaprabhu wanted to make sure that Raghunatha Das Goswami would recover from the strain and the exertions of his trip, but thereafter he wanted to let him alone to observe his renunciation and devotion. So after a few days he was left on his own, and Raghunatha Das Goswami's renunciation and devotion increased from day to day. Mahaprabhu actually handed him over for tutelage and instruction and guidance to Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. In Chaitanya Leela, actually there are three Raghunaths. One is Raghunath Das Goswami, about whom we are talking now. There is Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and there is also another Raghunath Das, who is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So to distinguish this Raghunath Das Goswami from the other two Raghunaths, he is known amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas as Swarupera Raghunath, which means the Raghunath of Swarup Damodar Goswami, who became the Shiksha Guru of Raghunath Das Goswami. Being very humble and feeling shy to directly approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was satisfied with the instructions that Swarup Damodar gave him, and sometimes he would ask questions via Swarup Damodar. So then Swarup Damodar would place these questions to Mahaprabhu, and then Mahaprabhu would answer those questions, and then Swarup Damodar would relay the answers to Raghunath Das. This was how Raghunath Das lived in Jagannath Puri. One time, however, he wanted some direct instructions personally from the lotus mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu said to Swarup Damodar, well, all right, I've already given him instructions that you should be his teacher, but nevertheless, if he does want direct instructions from me, well, tell him the following. These are my instructions. Considering that Raghunath Das Goswami is a renunciant here in Puri. So his instructions were very famous, and I think most devotees have them by heart, at least these one or two verses. Although these instructions are principally meant for those who are living a renounced life, but they are also very applicable for all devotees of Krishna. Gramya katha na shunibe, Gramya katha na kahibe. Gramya katha literally means village talk. Basically means prajalpa. Any materialistic gossip. So Mahaprabhu's first instruction to Raghunath was, don't listen to any unnecessary gossip. Well, gossip is unnecessary. So any unnecessary talk. And Gramya katha na kahibe. And don't speak any prajalpa. Don't gossip, even if it is in the association of devotees. Very, very important instruction for us. Because it's such a tempting thing to do when we come in the midst of devotees to talk about everybody else. And then he said, Bhalana khaibe or bhalana poribe. Bhalana khaibe means don't eat sumptuously, don't eat luxurious, delicious foods. Don't pander to the whims of your tongue. Eat simple food. And bhalana poribe. Don't dress luxuriously or fashionably, and that applies to us today also. Whatever be the ashram in which we are situated, we should also dress in a clean way, but in a simple, presentable way. Then he said, Amani manada hana sada Krishna nama loibe. Becoming amani, not desiring any respect for yourself. Manada, being ever willing to give respect to others. You constantly chant the names of Krishna. And finally then he said, Vraje Radha Krishna Seva Manase Karibe. In your mind, you constantly serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So the important point that Mahaprabhu made here is that it is not only physical residence in Vrindavan that is important. It is even more important for us to live in Vrindavan within our mind. If one is constantly serving Radha and Krishna in one's mind, then one is residing in Vrindavan. Because Vrindavan, after all, is not only a physical place, even if it is a physical spiritual place. It is actually a state of consciousness. And therefore Mahaprabhu has spoken Mora Mana Vrindavana. Mahaprabhu said, my mind is Vrindavan because I constantly think of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So some very, very useful and practical instructions were given by Mahaprabhu to Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. And then he emphasized again the fact that he should take further instructions from Swarup Damodar because there would be no better teacher for him than Swarup Damodar. Raghunatha Dasa Goswami personally witnessed many of the pastimes of Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. He lived there for 16 years in Mahaprabhu's association. He had come there as a young man and continued living there for 16 long years. And during that time, apart from personally witnessing the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, he also heard many of the intimate pastimes from Swarup Damodar Goswami and also the other devotees. And as time went by, his renunciation and devotion just kept increasing by leaps and bounds to the extent that he became a very famous personality. And people would come from far and wide to have his darshan. They heard about his glories and they would come just for his darshan. And this would embarrass young Raghunatha Goswami no end. And every devotee who came and offered him obeisances, he would offer them obeisances in return. And it is said that he offered obeisances to devotees 2,000 times a day, because there were that many devotees coming and offering him obeisances. And this, of course, continued on later in Braj when he came here after leaving Puri. He would offer obeisances 1,000 times a day to the deity of the Lord. And he would also chant the holy names at least 100,000 times a day. This is how Raghunatha Das Goswami passed his time. The narrations of his renunciation, his begging for alms, are given by Kaviraja Goswami, the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I would encourage all the devotees to read these wonderful pastimes about how his renunciation progressed from one stage to another stage. And finally, Raghunatha Das Goswami came to the point of eating practically nothing, very, very little. And then after 16 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu terminated his Prakat Leela, his manifest pastimes on this planet. And before he did so, actually, Mahaprabhu, being very fond of young Raghunath, gifted him his own Govardhan Shila and his Gunjamala, which had been presented to him by Shankarananda Saraswati, who had come from Braja to Puri. Mahaprabhu had received these gifts with eagerness and gratitude, and he worshipped them personally. Some people say 3 months and some people say 3 years. So after 3 months or 3 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gifted that Govardhan Shila and also the Gunjamala to Raghunatha Das Goswami as his personal gifts to him. The Gunja berry is a favorite of Srimati Radharani, so it represents Srimati Radharani. Govardhan Shila, of course, represents Krishna. So Raghunatha Das Goswami was overwhelmed to receive these precious gifts directly and personally from Mahaprabhu. So he understood that by this gesture, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted him to personally worship and serve Govardhan, and eventually to perhaps take residence at Govardhan, near Govardhan. And therefore later he composed the famous Govardhan Vas Prarthana Dashakam. Nija Nikata Nivasam Dehi Govardhanatvam, wherein he prays to Govardhan for eternal residence near him. And then by the Gunja berry gift, he understood this to be Mahaprabhu handing him over to the shelter of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. He cherished these two precious possessions always. And whenever he worshipped Govardhan Shila, and Mahaprabhu gave him instructions on how to worship, with 8 tulasi leaves and manjaris and offering holy Ganga or Jamuna water. So whenever Raghunatha Das Goswami worshipped the Govardhan Shila, he would wear that Gunjamala around his neck. And he carried them with him also when he came to Vraj. Why did he come to Vraj? When he was living there in Jagannath Puri, fully satisfied in the association of Mahaprabhu? Because after 16 years, Mahaprabhu departed from this world. It was very difficult for Raghunatha Das Goswami to bear the separation. But somehow or the other, he was able to continue on in Puri because of the physical presence of his Shiksha Guru, Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. But Swarup Damodar Goswami himself was utterly grief-stricken in separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So 2 or 3 years after Mahaprabhu's disappearance, Swarup Damodar also departed from this world. And this was too much for Raghunatha Das Goswami to bear. And he was about 40 years old at this time. So he must have stayed there for about 18 or 19 years in Puri by this time. And he resolved within his mind that anyway Mahaprabhu had indicated to me by his gestures and instructions that I should take shelter of Vraja. So I want to go to Govardhan and jump from the top of Govardhan hill and commit suicide, because I cannot bear to live in separation from Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar. So then he left and he came to Jagannath, he came to Vrindavan. Raghunath Das Goswami immediately came to Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Initially, he didn't tell them anything. He didn't tell them of his intention to commit suicide in that way. But the two great Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatan, understood the heart of Raghunath. And eventually, perhaps Raghunath also revealed his mind to them, Guhyam Akhyati Pritchati. And it is said that both Rup and Sanatan Goswamis spent a long time with Raghunath Das Goswami trying to dissuade him from his resolve to commit suicide. And Sanatan Goswami shared his own personal experience in this matter. He told him, look, I also one time wanted to commit suicide just like you do. And then he narrated the whole pastime that is described by Kaviraja Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, about how Sanatan Goswami's body was covered with all sorts of boils and pus was oozing from them, very painful and very unclean condition to be in for anyone. And he came to Mahaprabhu in Puri, and he was thinking, I can't even face the world, I can't be near anybody, this body isn't worth existing anymore, so I want to commit suicide. Mahaprabhu, being the Antaryami, the indwelling Lord in everybody's heart, understood and gently rebuked Sanatan Goswami for harboring such an unholy desire in his heart. And he said, Sanatan, ever since you have surrendered to me, this body is no longer your possession. So how dare you think of destroying somebody else's property? That is not right for you. And in any case, no one can obtain Krishna Prem just by committing suicide and destroying the physical body. One obtains Krishna Prem by chanting the holy names of Krishna. So Sanatan Goswami repeated Mahaprabhu's instructions to Raghunath and said that Mahaprabhu told me that if one could have attained Krishna Prem just by committing suicide, I would have committed suicide millions of times. But the proper way to do that is to chant the holy names. So dear Raghunath, please live with us here as our younger brother. And together we will chant the holy names, we will have Krishna Katha, we will serve Radha Krishna and Vraj Dham here together. So then finally, being overwhelmed by the love and compassion of Rup and Sanatan, Raghunath Das Goswami changed his mind and he stayed in Braj and he made his residence at Radha Kund, where he continued his very, very severe austerities. He received full shelter of Raghunath Das, of Rupa Goswami. And also, of course, he received a lot of shiksha from Sanatan Goswami. At Radha Kund, he continued his austerities, chanting on the banks of the Kund. As time went by, of course, he would, on the instructions of Rupa and Sanatan, every day speak for a couple of hours in the evening on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas, which he had heard and experienced and seen himself. And this was a wonderful time for all the residents of Radha Kund. There weren't that many in those days. And every evening they would gather to hear Raghunath Das Goswami speaking. And many, many pastimes took place there. Once when he was contemplating and looking at Radha Kund, he felt an urge to make Radha Kund something that was appropriate. He wanted to excavate it and have proper ghats or steps on all sides, give it a proper shape and structure and so on. But when when these thoughts crossed his mind, he was chanting his japa. And then he condemned himself for having let his mind stray away from thoughts other than the holy names. Of course, for those devotees who are involved in temple management, it's all too familiar. That when you're thinking, you're chanting your japa, then you have thoughts about this issue and that issue and what's to be done here and what's to be done tomorrow. And indeed, that happens to other devotees as well. So Raghunatha Das Goswami was thinking, I've let my mind stray away from the holy name. And then he went on with his chanting and set aside those thoughts of excavating Radha Kund. But meanwhile, Srimati Radharani had other ideas. So she came in the dream of a rich merchant who was proceeding to Badrinath and told him, now I want you to come back. Don't proceed to Badrinath. You retrace your steps and go to Braj, go to Radha Kund, and go to Raghunatha Das Goswami. And this money that you have for giving in donation to Badrinath, you give it to him so that my kund will be excavated there. So this merchant came and said, I'm giving you all this money. Raghunatha Das said, what am I going to do with all this money? I'm a mendicant here. He said, I don't know, but this is what I've been instructed in my dream, and you please take this. So then he understood that this was Radharani's desire. And he set upon the task of doing this. And there is a famous incident of how in the process of excavating and giving a rectangular shape to Shamakund, there were some trees and he was thinking of cutting them down. But Maharaj Yudhishthir appeared to him in a dream and said, Raghunath, we 5 Pandava brothers are residing on the banks of Shamakund and performing our tapasya and devotional service here in the form of these trees. So please do not cut us down. Raghunatha Das Goswami was struck with wonder. And therefore, of course, he didn't have those trees cut down. Therefore, when you go to Shamakund, you will see it has an odd shape. It doesn't have a rectangular shape or a square shape like Radha Kund does. There were many other pastimes that happened here, but anyway, I won't talk about it because we're running out of time. I did mention, of course, that he took initiation from Yadunandana Acharya, who himself was a very close disciple of Advaita Acharya and also an associate of Vasudev Datta Thakur. Now, as far as Raghunatha Das Goswami's identity in Goloka Vrindavan is concerned, in the Gauda Ganodesha Deepika of Kavi Karnapur, the son of Shivananda Sen, it is mentioned that he is Rasa Manjari and he is Rati Manjari and also Bhanumati Manjari. In the Paddhati of Gopal Guru Goswami, he is mentioned as Rati Manjari alone, whose nickname was Tulsi Manjari. So Raghunatha Das Goswami is not an ordinary devotee. He is not even an extraordinary devotee. He directly came from the spiritual world, from Goloka Vrindavan. He is an eternal associate of Radharani and Krishna. And he came here and participated in Gaur Leela. 3 books of his are famous. The one is Tavavali. The other is Dana Charita, also called Dana Keli Chintamani. And finally, Mukta Charita. Perhaps in some other days, some devotees may describe the other pastimes of Raghunatha Das Goswami. Coming to Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami, the same Gauda Ganodesha Deepika mentions that he is Raga Manjari. The Manjaris, as we all know, are the assistants of the Sakhis, the gopis of Vrindavan. They are slightly younger in age, and they serve the gopis in their service to Srimati Radharani and Krishna. Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami was a son of Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra was one of those first few people, not the very first one, but one of the very first few who actually understood the divine identity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Mahaprabhu, as a Grihastha, as the husband of Lakshmi Priya had gone to East Bengal, that's today Bangladesh, to exhibit his scholarship and earn some money for his grihastha life, he met Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra came to him and said that I had a dream in which I was told to come to Nimai Pandit, to you, and that you will reveal to me the purpose of my life. And Nimai Pandit at that time was playing the part or the pastime of a scholar of grammar and logic. He had not yet manifested and exhibited his devotional pastimes. So in great confidence, he told him to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If I'm not mistaken, this is probably the first time that Mahaprabhu actually preached about the Mahamantra specifically. If anybody has any other information, please tell me. But as far as I understand, this is probably the first time. And then he told him to go to Banaras and stay there. He said, one day after some years, I will join you there. So with a heavy heart, Tapan Mishra left the association of Mahaprabhu and went to Banaras. And his son was Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Many years later, Mahaprabhu had already taken sannyas and he had come to Vrindavan. He had made some initial unsuccessful attempts to go to Vraj, but this time he succeeded. He went to Vraj, and then on his return journey, he stayed in Banaras, Varanasi. He stayed at the house of Chandrasekharacharya, and he would also take prasadam there and also in the house of Tapan Mishra. There was also another Maharashtriya Brahmin. And when Mahaprabhu came there, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was a young boy, and he would also personally serve Mahaprabhu prasadam, and he would get his association and remnants as well. So very, very fortunate young devotee, Raghunath Bhatta. And then after that, after he grew up a bit, he went to Jagannath Puri and stayed there for 8 months in Mahaprabhu's association. Then Mahaprabhu told him, my instruction to you is to go and serve your parents who are great devotees till the end of their life. And after that, you should go to Vraj and serve Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Assist them in their service to me. So then he went back and served his parents. His parents lived for another 4 years, after which they departed from this world and went back to Godhead. And then, keeping in mind Mahaprabhu's order, he wanted to go to Vraj, but thought that let me go to Jagannath Puri first and be with Mahaprabhu for some time. So he went to Jagannath Puri and lived with Mahaprabhu for another 8 months. And this time again, Mahaprabhu told him, now Raghunath Bhatta, you've lived long enough here in Puri, now time for service. Now go on and go to assist Rupa and Sanatan Goswami in Vrindavan. On his journey from Banaras to Puri, there was one Ram Das who accompanied him, who was always chanting the names of Lord Ram. And Raghunath Bhatta was very impressed with his devotion and humility, but Mahaprabhu actually ignored him. And when Raghunath Bhatta inquired why, later, in confidence, Mahaprabhu told him that even though this man is constantly chanting the name of Lord Ram, and he externally appears to be a great devotee of Lord Ram, actually, within his heart, latently, he is an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Lord. Anyway, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, I beg your pardon, came to Vraja. He was welcomed heartily by the Goswamis there, and he stayed there reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which he was so expert at doing, and chanting the holy names. Rup and Sanatan Goswamis told Raghunath Bhatta, Raghunath, you stay with us. Every day we will chant the holy names. And because you have such a sweet singing voice, you should sing the various verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which Raghunath Bhatta dutifully and devotionally did. His singing was so sweet that all the devotees would come and hear him singing there. He would sing every verse in different melodies and with great devotion. Actually, even Mahaprabhu in Puri would love to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Raghunath Bhatta. So he stayed on here, and Mahaprabhu gave a 10-foot long Tulsi garland of Lord Jagannath as a personal gift to Raghunath Bhatta Goswami before he left from Puri. And he preserved that as long as he could. And in his household life, he lived for 28 years. So it appears that after the age of 28, Raghunath Bhatta must have come to Vrindavan, and he stayed here. Coming to Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami, of course there's so much to say, and his magnum opus, the reason for which Kaviraja Goswami is remembered most in the community of Gaudiya Vaishnavas is that he wrote the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that one most authentic and authoritative book on the life and teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in addition to the Chaitanya Bhagavat of Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur. When he came to Vrindavan on the order of Nityananda Prabhu, who appeared to him in a dream and told him to go there after a momentous incident that happened there, where he rebuked his brother for not having faith in Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu's mercy flowed upon Kaviraj Goswami. Kaviraj Goswami awoke from the dream and instantly proceeded to Vraj. There is no description or narration that he carried his laptops and his paraphernalia and everything. He just, as it is, he woke up, he remembered his dream, just walked to Vrindavan. He walked all the way and was again welcomed here by the residents of Braj. He started residing in Radha Kund. He heard the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the lotus mouth of Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, who would narrate these pastimes every day in the evening at Radha Kund. He was instructed by the devotees to compile the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which he eventually did after getting blessings and approval from Madan Mohan, from whose neck the garland fell down. And Raghunath and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami understood this to be the blessings of Madan Mohan. He was very old at that time, and even in that condition, he managed to compose and to write this great book, which is a wonder, and he expresses that again and again in the book, in Chaitanya Charitamrita itself. His Samadhi tomb is here in Radha Kund. As far as his initiation is concerned, some people say he was directly initiated by Nityananda Prabhu in the dream, but that is not certain, because all we know from the Chaitanya Charitamrita is that Nityananda Prabhu simply instructed him to go to Braj and he blessed him. But whether he actually initiated him or not is not a certainty. But in the Prem Vilas, another famous book of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, it is mentioned that he was initiated by Raghunatha Dasa Goswami. His identity is Ratna Rekha Manjari or Kasturi Manjari, according to the Ganodesha Deepika. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami lived here, and he composed not just the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but also the Govinda Lilamrita. And another famous book, which is the Saranga Rangada, which is his commentary on the famous Krishna Lilamrita of Bilvamangal Thakur. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraja Goswami ki jai. Srila Raghunatha Bhatta Goswami ki jai. Srila Raghunatha Dasa Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.